Welcome to SportsbookReview.com. This is the home of the winning picks, and this is the betting with the bag. Obviously, Jimmy's not here. He's not very well, so it's next man up. We're going to have Donnie Rightside going through the NFL picks this weekend, and they are massive games. And also, we'll touch on the college football as the playoffs really start taking shape. Utah looking to just slip themselves in there if the Bulldogs don't take care of the Tigers. A lot of people think that LSU will get the business done. We've got plenty in the chat. Steve Orley, morning. A lot of love in there for obviously Vegas Gunn, SBR family member who sadly passed away this week, and all our thoughts go to him and his family. But we're going to kick straight on, and we're going to go with Donnie. Donnie, how are you, sir?
Doing good. Friday, Flash. And look, when the stars are out, so to speak, there, you got to bring in the big guns to hold down the fort. None better than Flash himself. If you want EPL, if you want American football, English football, you're the man for the job. It's Friday. We'll have some fun today, my man.
We had some fun last night with the Dallas Cowboys choking against the Bears, and that lets your Eagles right in with a shout.
No, you're right about it. It was interesting yesterday because I put out a free play video, which wasn't too happy with. Flash had the first half with the Dallas Cowboys -1. They 17-play drive to start the game. Looked like I'm going to cash this ticket with ease. And just like that Buffalo Bills game, for some reason, Dallas goes off the rails, get too far behind to catch up, end up getting beat. And who is going to win the NFC East, Flash? It doesn't even matter at this point, right?
No, it doesn't. And you look at the way the Cowboys set out last night, and they were slow. And then when the horses bolted, they try and close the stable door with up-tempo. They make their completions. But the Bears were in total command.
No, the Bears were in complete command of that game. And how about this Mr. Trubisky, back-to-back games where he's looked fairly good? Now, not the greatest defenses, Flash, that he's going up against, but it's certainly something that now puts them back in the wild card race moving forward. Also, when you look at last night, how crazy is it, too? Because some people are sitting on that 23.5 as a team total for the Dallas Cowboys. They come back and actually get that with an onside kick chance for a chance to tie with a miracle with 7 or 8 seconds to go. But if you watch that game, Flash, from start to finish, Bears were the much better team, and the Bears were injured on defense, and still much better, Flash.
Yeah, and a lot of the spreads were moving above the plus 11.5. I think there was minus 16.5 in a place at a time, and you knew that they were going to backdoor cover. Started the game at -3. Only Bovada went free in a hook, but it was the writing was on the wall very early on for the Cowboys as soon as the Bears and Trubisky got into their groove. Now, obviously, that opens up the Eagles. Let's move into another cracking game on Sunday. We're going to have a look at the Ravens -6 at the Bills, and the total's 43.5, and there's a move to the over.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about this game, Flash, when you take a look at it? Because midweek, when we did the audible early with Jimmy and the Whale on Tuesday, we're taking a look and trying to finalize some odds. Like, where's this line going to actually go? Because you were seeing 5s and 5.5s out the week. Ooh, that real sharp pick's going to be on the Buffalo Bills, which I actually like the Buffalo Bills in this football game here, Flash. The one tough thing about this game to try to quantify is coming off of a huge victory last week over the San Francisco 49ers, putting your stamp on the AFC and now sitting in that top spot. Sometimes you are due for a letdown, but a lot of those letdowns are teams, Flash, that air it out and pass and go on the road. This is primarily a running football team. You can rush on the Buffalo Bills. I think Josh Allen will have a pretty good football game. I think overall the Ravens are going to win this football game, but now that we're seeing across the board those 6s showing up, and even some offshore spots such as Chris at -6, -115, I would be real surprised, Flash, if this game actually moves to 6.5. I'm actually surprised it's holding 6 across the board pretty strong here. Yeah,
there's only Bovada sticking their head above the parapet at 6.5, but a lot of people forget, and they're entitled to forget, that the Bills are 9-3, and they're cementing themselves in that wild card position, and there's no slip-ups. The Ravens obviously go to the defense-heavy Bills, but the Kansas City Chiefs, they actually have to go to Foxborough.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a tough game. And getting back to the Bills, Flash, when we talk about teams that, on the come and maybe make a playoff run, it's almost like they're the forgotten team because they're pretty much cemented into that 5th spot. But if you look down the road, Flash, if they somehow can upset the Baltimore Ravens this week, and then as you just stated, Kansas City goes in, and it's only a 3-point line versus the New England Patriots, as we know, struggling on offense. If they knock them down, now it's all of a sudden in the realm of the New England Patriots not even getting first place in the AFC East. There's a lot of stuff over the past couple weeks to decide, but those Buffalo Bills, I think a lot of people are still sleeping on them. They're getting better week by week here, Flash.
They are. So you going to fancy the Bills and take the points?
Yes, I do. Right now it's 6 points, and I'm almost saying, like, you know what? If I see it get to 6, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. But now I see some of those extra juice coming in where I'm like, well, you know, Flash, why don't I wait maybe a day? Maybe a 6.5 does pop its head outside of Bovada, which I can't use in New Jersey, which stinks. That would be more advantageous. So I'm going to wait and see approach, but I do like the Bills here. I do.
Yeah, I think there will be some juice coming in on the Ravens, and then that might just give you a nice, healthy spot on the Bills. Moving on, we got the Redskins minus 13 at the Packers, and the total is a low 41.5.
Yeah, look, Green Bay should be in a bounce-back spot here. And I like everything that happened last week with the Washington Redskins. When you have a coaching staff that's basically fired and won't be back next year, you have a rookie, as your starter under center. The team's like, we're not going anywhere, so I don't really want to get hurt. That's nice to go on the road and pick up a victory. But let's also not forget, they only threw for about 140 yards in that game. I don't think you're going to have a repeat performance of 200-plus yards on the ground for the Washington Redskins to keep them around. But as the old adage goes, Flash, it's not really about picking who's going to win the football game. We're gamblers. It's about who's going to cover the spread. It is quite a little bit low, 41 in that range. And I guess they're trying to sit on saying, Flash, look, unless Washington runs the ball extremely well, we're going to revert back to what they were over the past month, which not scoring touchdowns and kicking field goals doesn't help you when looking at a total. It's not awful conditions, 39, 40 degrees in Green Bay as we're anticipating for Sunday. But that windy conditions opening up, it looks like, Flash, about 15 miles an hour, should die down as the game goes. That's a low total. I think Green Bay is going to be able to score. The only problem is, do we get that same offensive outburst by the Washington Redskins if they can't run the football here, Flash?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Packers, and I think this is like maybe a 28-14 game, but the Redskins put points on the board late. Once again, the Hawks will be bolted, and a bit like what they've done down there in Miami, and they've thrown the ball late, and they're getting points, and they don't quite cover, but they get us over. And 28-14 is not a big score that we don't need a lot to ask there.
No, you certainly don't need a lot to ask for, and especially when we're dealing with a defense that's middle of the road. You saw last week, Flash, the Green Bay Packers touched over 30 points in a horrible, horrible weather game up in the Meadowlands. There's no reason to believe if we don't get snow or rain and the winds are around that 10 to 15 mile an hour range, that Green Bay, again, Flash, can't touch into the 30s. You're right. Okay,
we talked about sleepers. We're going to move on to the Broncos. Plus 9.5 at the sleeping Texans. The total's 42.5. It's gone from 41. They're liking the over, Donnie.
The over's a tough one in this one. I actually agree a little bit more towards the under, but also an under with the side of the Houston Texans. Houston is completely healthy on the offensive line. Obviously, looking at those three-headed wide receivers that they have, fantastic. Deshaun Watson, a great quarterback. And heading into this football game again, guess who didn't practice for the second straight time after missing a football game last Sunday? That's Von Miller. And if he's not going to be on that carpet pressuring Deshaun Watson, he's going to have a lot of time to throw. And keep in mind, Derek Wolfe, another defensive lineman who's now on IR for the year after getting injured. That leaves that front seven a little bit depleted. And if you're going to get a pass rush and you're going to try to hold down the Houston offense, you must pressure Deshaun Watson. I'm not sure that's going to happen. You saw last week, that's great. Locke had a nice win at home. Didn't throw for too many yards at all. Now he goes on the road. But in question again that you're going to have is, can Bill O'Brien cover double digits? I'm not looking for the Denver Broncos this weekend. I think they had one of their Super Bowl quote-unquote moments. Let's get the rookie some good feelings. Now you go on the road and face a team that's going to be headed to the playoffs. I think Houston smokes them here. I'm not sure Denver scores all that much on offense, Flash.
Yeah, I mean, my main bet is actually Texans giving up the 9.5. Happy to go as far as 10. But I see a couple of books. I like edging at 8.5. I'm not worried about it at all. And I even took the Texans in the AFC 14. Plus 1,400. That's just miles too big when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs are at plus 700. I think that the Texans, if they're healthy, they're a match for anyone, Donnie.
You're exactly correct. And anybody's going to look, there's a wide open AFC, outside of Baltimore Ravens, which looked like the cream of the crop at this time. It's not out of range where if you get some games where, Houston, you just saw they can knock off the New England Patriots who are sitting at 10-2. And Houston could probably go into Kansas City if they have to win a football game and match up with them very well. It's all a matter of how they come down the stretch. If these teams stay healthy during the playoff run, Houston is in it just like everybody else here, Flash. And again, we're going to look back and say, well, what do you mean they're going to be in it? Because the Baltimore Ravens smashed the Texans when they came up to Baltimore. I get it, but it's the NFL. It's week to week at times. And if they're coming in hot, they might be able to provide a little bit better spark there.
Game of the weekend, without a shadow of a doubt in the NFL, is the 49ers plus 2.5 at the Saints. There's plus 2 now, so it's moving down. Total points at 45.5. Do we see a shootout? And how much did it take out the 49ers at last week's game against the Ravens?
I loved it, what they did last week, because you're showing some versatility here, Flash. You're going and playing arguably the best team in football in their house, in their type of weather, because they want to run. And outside of a 4th-and-1 conversion, which San Francisco had with about 4 or 5 minutes on the clock, they probably win that game. They don't convert it, but on the opposite side, the Baltimore Ravens do and kick the field goal from 49 yards with Tucker. Now, looking at this game moving forward, I think San Francisco's the better football team overall than the New Orleans Saints, but it's hard to beat the Saints down in the Dome. I'd be looking to maybe take a first half or so on San Francisco, figuring they can come out of the gates, they can get with it, but it's hard to beat Drew Brees down in the Dome. The under does look a little bit suspicious here, because at 44.5, you're dealing with two really good offenses, but at the same time now, Flash, you're dealing with really two good defenses. I think San Francisco is going to be able to get them in the end. I think San Francisco will get into the 20s, but I'm not so sure if the actual New Orleans Saints can fire back. We're going to check on some health conditions, because if D Ford comes back as another pass rusher on the opposite side of Bosa, that bodes well. I love the 49ers. I just think they're a better football team than the Saints.
Yeah, really impressed. And I have a saying that sometimes when you lose, you actually win. And they lost the game last week, but they won a lot in my mind. And when I'm looking at the game, I'm thinking to myself, it might well be an in-play to see how well they are, if they've got that spring in their step, because as a unit, I still think they're probably going to be the best in the NFC.
No, you're right. And looking at this game overall, Flash, I mean, you're talking about open up 3.5 offshore, and you think that's a fair price. You got to have some action coming in to knock the New Orleans Saints under a field goal. Not only just under a field goal, Flash, to 3 and 2.5, down to some 2s. It'll be interesting to see where this actually ends up. And that one key thing that we're looking at, the pass rush that we know, which is so good for the 49ers. Keep in mind, Armstead left practice yesterday with an injury. They're going to determine how serious it is, because you're going against an offensive line a little bit depleted for New Orleans. That could be a key matchup here. We'll look forward to that and see some of those inactives on Sunday morning, Flash.
Okay, here's a game just for the purist, and a purist you must be if you're interested in the Dolphins at plus 5.5, and that started at 7 at the Jets. So total points of 45.5, and that's gone up from 44, Donnie.
Yeah, I need to see the weather conditions here finalized, because it doesn't look like it's going to be that bad in East Rutherford playing up in the Meadowlands. My initial reaction to this game is most people say, oh, my Miami's playing really well. They just beat the Eagles, and the Jets really stink, so I'm going to take the 5.5. I understand that. I do. But going on the road, I think the Jets get right in this football game. I was absolutely shocked, Flash, that they were only able to get 6 points in their football game versus the Cincinnati Bengals last week. They're scoring 34 points, 3 straight games. But again, everybody gets right against the Dolphins. Cleveland struggled with good defenses. They blew out the Dolphins. Miami last week versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Even the Eagles didn't win. The Eagles' offense got right. The Jets should be able to get right. Now, you're seeing some things coming out of Jets camp here. Le'Veon Bell under the weather the last 2 days. Not too sure if he's going to play. I don't really think it matters. I think if the healthy wide receivers come to play for the Jets and you get some time to throw, which everybody gets time to throw against the Miami Dolphins, I'm leaning towards the Jets in this ball game, and also leaning towards an over, because we know both teams really can't run the football. That's great, because when you pass, you get interceptions, you get penalties, you get big completions, and most importantly, Flash, on incompletions, the clock does stop. So I'm actually leaning towards the Jets in the over here.
I don't blame you, and I think that there's a false move here. I think the plus 5.5 for the Fish, down from obviously 7. But I think to myself, how much of that's been taken into account because of how bad the Jets were last week? This week, back on home field against the Dolphins defense that I think I could throw against, and I'd even go as far as saying you would complete against. I think you would get many receiving yards against this the Fish defense. So yeah, I'm with you. I like the Jets giving up under a touchdown, and I think that the total points are 45.5. I think that's in danger as well. Now, we're talking about banged up teams. The Lions plus 13.5 started at 15.5, go to the Vikings, and the points are over 43. But the Vikings, they limped out last week, Donnie.
Yeah, they're a good football team at home, Minnesota, but you're correct about that, because now when we're trying to shape up for a playoff run, not so sure they can actually make it to the top of the division, but certainly a wild card race is intact. And the one crazy thing is Adam Thielen, we haven't seen him in weeks on end here, Flash, and certainly not practicing this week, and going against a Detroit Lions team, which is a divisional foe. 13-point line. Looks like he's going to miss this football game again. And what you saw last week from the Minnesota Vikings, you do have a good offense even when Thielen doesn't play, is Dalvin Cook left that football game early and said, you know what, shoulder injury, I'm fine, I'm going to play. But if you're Mike Zimmer and that coaching staff, you got a lot bigger fish to fry down the line with making the playoffs. Is this a game where you're going to put Dalvin Cook and give him 20 touches coming off of a shoulder injury? I don't think that's going to be the case. I would lean towards Detroit, but it's really tough for me to do. If we see that Dalvin Cook is going to be on a pitch count, Adam Thielen's not going to play, I would say probably the under comes a little bit in. But if Dalvin Cook, if I can imagine or so, have a crystal ball and say, you know what, he's going to get 20 to 25 touches, I still think they can score. And what we saw from the Minnesota defense leaking oil a little bit, I'm not so sure they can really hold down those good wide receivers from the Detroit Lions. So a lot still to be determined. Not really in love with this football game. But you know what? If I'm not going to get Thielen and a healthy Dalvin Cook, it's hard to lay 13 points in the division, Flash.
100%. And I looked at the safeties, what they were in coverage, and they were running in a sandpit with deep sea divers boots on. The separation was scary, and I'm agreeing with you that I think that they will keep their stars back. If they're not 100%, there's nothing to gain in this game other than a W. Forget your 13.5. Remember, this opened at 15.5. The Sharps are massively on the Lions, and the Vikings, they've just got to get a W, get them the boys fit, and get into the postseason. Now, Chiefs +3 at the Patriots, total points 49. There is no way on this earth I can see 49 points being put up in this game, Donnie.
And I think you're on the right path here, Flash. And the reason I'm saying, wait a second. Now, we saw the Patriots, even though they came back, they got into the 20s. How can you take an under with the Kansas City Chiefs? They're always going to go over and press it to the max. Well, if you are the New England Patriots in this football game, Flash, and you try to sit back and say, what is our best path to victory, other than being at home and only favored by 3 points in this game? Try to control the clock. It's December. You're going to try to get that running game going, which hasn't been there really all year. Where are your big weapons at wide receiver where you're going to say, you know what, Tom? Why don't you just go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in this Kansas City offense and see if we can win this game 35-31? I think your pathway to victory for New England is short passes out of the backfield, Edelman over the middle for 10 to 15 yards, and maybe make a play or two with Mohamed Sanu on the outside and Philip Dorsett. Flip it over to the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, they have a great offense, but you do have an extremely good defense in the New England Patriots on the opposite side. I don't see a shootout. I'm with you here on this, Flash, just because I think the pace of play will be dictated by New England. Just like you saw last night, the opening drive for the Dallas Cowboys, 17 plays, eating up a lot of clock. That's the way the New England Patriots are going to win this football game. I got to tell you, it's one, if we're looking at the line itself, Flash, threes across the board, something to sway you if it goes to 2.5 that you say, look, man, Tom Brady doesn't lose too many games in Foxborough. All they have to do basically is win. I'll take that side, or flip it over, get to 3.5 with Kansas City and say, I don't think New England's powerful enough, and I think Kansas City has a legitimate shot. This might be a field goal game. And let's also not forget all the field goal woes that the New England Patriots have, looking to bring back Nick Folk in this game after being injured the past couple weeks. They can't get it right. So if there's a 46-yard field goal to win the game or cover a spread, that's no longer a guarantee like you had back in the day with Vinatieri and also Gostkowski for New England here, Flash.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots got no pace, won't stretch you, but what they will do is clock and game management. I look at Belichick, he's looking for the W. He's just trying to find a way to put pressure on the Ravens. And he's got to keep clear of the Bills, by the way, because they're looking over the shoulder. And obviously, don't forget the Texans. They cannot afford, and they don't lose in Foxborough in December. So, I mean, I wouldn't put anyone off the Patriots at -3. I would definitely want to be on the Patriots if it falls to -2.5. But the under 49, it's screaming. I can't see the Patriots putting up mid-20s. Backdoored me last week. I went with the Texans on the money line. I went with Texans over 7 and over 12-point gap. And I got done because the Texans allowed them to go and get a garbage touchdown, which I was right in every single way, but never got paid, Donnie. That's a painful way. It's a painful way.
No, you're exactly right. We've all been in those type of situations where it looks like it lines up perfectly, and then somebody reaches into your pocket and takes the money away from you, Flash, when you've already spent the money. That's going to be a good one in Foxborough. Looking forward to it. It's a fantastic card, because keep in mind also, we don't have any bye weeks this week. Look how big this card is. That means there's a lot of advantageous spots that you could take. So I'm really looking forward to a lot of these, Flash.
The other big thing that we've got to remember is there's no bye weeks now right the way to the end of the season. So there's no chance of these sides recovering if they get banged up, and that will have a say. Now, this next one is a bit of a slow, sleepy game. The Steelers -2.5 at the Cards. It was 1, and the total's 43.5, Donnie. But I look at this game, and who would have thought the Steelers would be 7-5 going into this game?
Yeah, you know what? Kudos to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Handled everything well last week. You had a young quarterback. Even got down 10-0 at home to the Cleveland Browns. Looked like they were going to cruise to victory. Next thing you know, a couple points unanswered here. Duck Hodges plays really well. And that defense, you can lean on them. They are extremely good. Now you take this same Steelers team and you say, Flash, because you've been in big games before, you really gear up for that rival. And then you go out west a few thousand miles and you play a team that's not in the playoff hunt. And that team that was the Arizona Cardinals playing much looser. But what did you get out of the Arizona Cardinals last week, Flash, when the Rams were kicking them up and down the field? The Rams do have a very good defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers do have a really good defense. The only difference here is there was a lot more weapons available from the Rams' perspective last week than you're going to get from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Can you go on the road? Can you put up 17 or 20 points and expect a victory? Because we've seen games where the Arizona Cardinals have played very well, particularly on offense. Their defense isn't that great a caliber, but you're not going to have Connor back this week. You're not going to have Juju Smith-Schuster back this week, and you're going to be on the road. I also find it interesting here, Flash, when you take a look at the lines, hey, look, Pittsburgh's a much better team. They're fighting for the playoffs. Opens up in that 2.5 range. Now you're getting 2s at some outlets, some sharper ones offshore. That's a really interesting move because a lot of times at this year, you're now looking and saying, who actually needs the game more? Who's going to be prepared and who's going to be checked in? And also keep in mind, Kyler Murray, a little bit banged up last week, only 7 points on the board. The Steelers defense will come to play, but is it enough to get over the hump? Because realistically looking from a points perspective for the Steelers, Flash, what are we looking at? Maybe 20 points out of them,
No, without a doubt. And you look at it, it's 43.5, and the under is absolutely screaming. I just don't know. I mean, obviously, I think the Steelers will win the game. And I think it will be the Steelers D that wins the game. So, I mean, you're under 43.5. If you're looking at the Steelers getting 20, 21 points, then that's the job done. Now, this is like throw the balls up in the air. They come out spread because I've got the Seahawks. I've got the Seahawks at a pick'em. I've got the Seahawks at -1, and I've got the Seahawks at +1 at the Rams, and the total's 47. It looks like an over to me. It looks like it could be an overtime game. So where do we look from the 10-2 Seahawks?
Yeah, it's always tough to take a Seattle under, Flash, because if you have a team that can push them on offense and put up points on the Seattle defense, Russell Wilson always answers the bell. And when you bet against the Seahawks, one of the more maddening prospects in all of sport, because 3 to 4 times a game, Flash, Russell Wilson is going to be outrageous out there on the field. It almost doesn't matter how good that defensive line is. Now, saying that, they're facing a really good defensive line, and the Rams have notoriously given the Seahawks a lot of problems over the years, specifically Aaron Donald getting pressure right up the middle against a mediocre offensive line. You want to like the Rams now all of a sudden because you saw last week, finally, 34 points. They look like they're rolling on offense. Their 3 wide receivers are healthy. Todd Gurley, he's out of, the coffin and back and playing some really good football. But then you know what? Where's the home field advantage? Because when you get Seattle out of Seattle, it's always a benefit. But there's no real home field advantage for the Rams. Seahawks have their fair share of fans down there. You're not going to get that loud or type of an environment. Sometimes I look at these games and say, this is why I picked on it on Monday, taking the first half with the Rams because of how poor that the actual Seahawks play in the first half. But then you get second half Russell Wilson, and if it's only a 1-point game and that's tied, give me Russell Wilson all day long. This is a really tough matchup. The sharper money obviously coming in on the Rams in this situation because everybody looks and sees that pick 'em or -1 or +1 and says, I'm going to take Russell Wilson just to win this football game, and I can't fault you. But I think the better defense lies on the Rams side as opposed to Seattle. And if we can get a good version of offense from Jared Goff, they're going to be hell on wheels in this game. Tough one, but I do agree you're going to get points. When you get Russell Wilson, you're going to get some points.
Team total sits at 23.5 for both sides. I think we look at going over on the pair of them. That then covers the total. The total's 47. I think this goes over 51, 52 in a heartbeat.
No, you know what? It's a good point you make there because if we're trying to factor on this game and see what happens, wouldn't you be surprised, Flash, if we saw a 21-17 final? Even if you did take both sides of that team total over 23.5, I'd be hard-pressed to say that you would lose both ends of those options, and you probably would have a good shot because, hey, what are you hoping for, a 24-24 game? And you both pack it in and you're right on that number anyway. I like your look on the totals, and I do think those team totals should go over for it, Flash.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put anyone against it going into overtime. I think you're looking at plus 1,400. If it goes into overtime, you're almost guaranteed that it's going to be a shootout. It's not going to be no 17-17. And we're looking at something there that either one or the other is going to get a touchdown in that extra time. Now, let's go to Monday night. The return of twice winning Super Bowl quarterback Eli Manning with the Giants -10 at the Eagles. There is some 9.5. Total points is 46 from 47. But the Eagles, it's a must-W game.
You know, it's funny, Flash, because I looked at last night and I said to myself, it's kind of interesting where these two teams are situated between the Dallas Cowboys and the Eagles, even though they're still a couple weeks off from playing each other, which is probably going to be the ultimate deciding factor on who wins that game, who actually wins the division and goes to the playoffs. It's like nobody cares. Like last night you saw that the Chicago Bears go out and beat the Dallas Cowboys, but the Dallas Cowboys go home like, this game didn't even matter one bit. And now you have the Eagles. I was actually hoping that the Dallas Cowboys won last night, so then the Philadelphia Eagles would be a little bit motivated, say, look, we can't drop behind and now lose the tiebreaker. But now all the pressure is off the Eagles, and this game doesn't even matter for them as well. Now, having said that, being an Eagles fan, the one joy I do have in life most of the time is every time the Eagles play the Giants, they wax them. Every time Eli Manning shows up for the Giants to go play the Eagles, they wax him. It doesn't matter if it was Mark Sanchez, Vince Young. It doesn't matter if it's a young Carson Wentz, a Sam Bradford. Everybody takes their shots and beats the Eli Manning Giants like a piñata. Eli, 10-22 straight up overall versus the Philadelphia Eagles in his career. That's 10-20 in the regular season and 0-2 in the playoffs. And the best part about it is, some people, whether the debate is if Eli Manning's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Let me tell you guys something. When Daniel Jones, who's not playing good football at all this year, goes down with an ankle injury, and a quote-unquote Hall of Famer is going to replace him, normally the line doesn't go to 8.5 to 10, which it actually did. Now looks like it's selling in mostly at 9.5. Eli is a horrendous quarterback. The Eagles should feast on them all game long. But again, Flash, you're talking about 10 points with an Eagles football team where the win doesn't even matter. Those are hard to take.
They are, and I just think it's all about the Eagles just making sure they get that W, because they have been on Russian roulette for the last 6 weeks to try and make sure that they do finish top. They do give themselves a one-off game opportunity, and if they're all healthy, they're all fit, them NFC boys, they are proper units, and anyone could beat anyone come the playoffs.
No, you're exactly right. There's a lot up for grabs. And again, when you get a home, because the Eagles, as bad as they are, the Cowboys, as bad as they are, they're going to have a really good shot to win a playoff game. Why is that? Because if you win the division, you host a playoff game. And at that time, Flash, as we see many times, and specifically talking about the Giants and the Eagles, the Giants have gone into the playoffs with mediocre teams, got hot, and won Super Bowls. It happens in all sports.
Donnie, have a great weekend. Gone through it there properly. You look at all the games, and obviously the 49ers and the Saints jumps out. But there's so many others, like the Kansas City Chiefs going to Foxborough, like the Ravens going to the Bills, and the Seahawks going to the Rams. Can't wait. What an unbelievable weekend we have. You have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week, Donnie.
Awesome, Flash. Thanks for having me on. Love when you host the show, man. Bringing the energy from all angles. Thank you to the people in the chat box. Flash, have a great show, my friend. Thank you.
Cheers, and go Eagles. Oh, you know that I am definitely on that Eagles train to backdoor a playoff place. Plenty love in the chat, although someone said to me that Flash looks like he's come out of a Goodwill shop. This is me dressed up. You want to see me going for dinner? I've seen better dress wounds. I've got Maxwell Swart saying, at least he's saying Kansas City Chiefs are being educated every single day. Now, the education doesn't get much better than my next one. It's NCAAF. It's college football this weekend, and it is all up for grabs. Teddy Covers, good morning, sir.
Hey, how are you this morning, Flash? What's a good word?
Oh, listen, there's some unbelievable games this weekend, and I look and I think, are Utah going to backdoor this playoff picture?
What do you mean backdoor the playoff picture? I don't understand.
Well, I'm looking at Georgia ranked 4. I've got Utah at 5. Georgia drop out, Utah in?
Not necessarily. Look, there's a lot of games to be played this weekend, and when we're talking about scenarios for what's going to happen for the playoffs, look, Clemson still got to win, okay? They don't win, they're not in. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Ohio State still got to win. If a Wisconsin pulls the upset, guess what? Buckeyes, maybe yes, maybe no. Georgia beats LSU. Does the SEC get 2 teams in? We don't know. What happens if Oklahoma beats Baylor? And Baylor, of course, is ranked much higher than Oregon. How does the committee make the adjustments there? Would Oklahoma get the bid over Utah? So the only thing the Utes and the Ducks can do tonight is play a football game, and then we'll see what the committee decides thereafter, which is, what the college football championship picture has come down to. It's a committee making decisions. It's kind of like a bureaucracy. Good times.
So we look at Utah versus Oregon. Utah giving up 6.5, 7 in a place. What side do you fall, Teddy?
So if I was going to play the game, I'd be looking at the Ducks plus the points. And I stepped in front of Utah a couple times this season, and I got my teeth kicked in. So I'm not going to play the game. But I feel like Oregon can hang in this contest. And of course, tonight, the weather is absolutely going to be an issue in Santa Clara this evening. There is wind, and it's a crosswind that's expected, which is bad news for Oregon. Oregon wants to chuck the football around with Herbert. That not likely to be one of the easier ways to move the football in this ballgame because of the weather conditions. Now, we'll see how that plays out in the hour before kickoffs, but all the forecasts that I've been seeing are problematic in terms of being able to throw the football. But where's the pressure in this ballgame? All the pressure's on Utah. All right, there's no pressure on the Oregon Ducks. They get to play spoiler. Oregon with the team speed edge, legitimately, over Utah. The biggest question here in my mind, and one that I'm having difficulty answering, is the Ducks' defense as good as their numbers indicate? I know Utah's defense is that good. Utah can ground and pound. They'll dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. But if Oregon can hang with them on the defensive line and not allow Zach Moss to rip off 5-7, put them in second and short, third and short over and over again, the Ducks can absolutely hang in this game. And we've seen Oregon's defense at times this season play like an elite unit. Can certainly understand all the under money that's come in this ball game. If I had a free bet, I'd look at the Ducks side. But like I said, at less than a touchdown, given the weather conditions, I'm not getting to the window with this one. So good luck if you're going to bet it.
Without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest game this weekend is going to be the Bulldogs and the Tigers. Do you lean one way or the other, Teddy?
Now, of course, I got leans everywhere. And yeah, I've got Georgia in my pocket. I put Georgia +7 in my pocket. That's not a lean, that's a bet. And it took me all week to get there. But the more I read, the more I thought, I had the opportunity to talk with a couple of bookmakers in town over the last 24 hours. And both of them were saying, we need Georgia in the worst way. It's nothing but LSU money. And in general, I want to be betting with the bookies, not against them. In general, there are lots of opportunities where you'll have to get involved in games where, hey, the books get smacked. But when it comes to these national TV marquee matchups, more often than not, I'd rather be on the book side than on the better side. And no question here that LSU is the side the bookmakers will be rooting against tomorrow. And it's your classic case. I mean, how many times have we seen this? The elite offense faces the elite defense. We see it all the time in sport after sport. Where's the edge in these matchups? And it really is cross-sport. It's a team that gets stops. So I don't trust Georgia to trade points with LSU.
No.
But I think Georgia's defense has a decent chance of shutting LSU down. So Georgia absolutely correlates with some under in that ballgame. If LSU gets into the 40s, Georgia's not covering this number. They're not winning the game. So to maximize your return on investment, maybe if you're looking at the Georgia side like I am, you may want to parlay that a little two-teamer Georgia in the under. Because like I said, they're not trading touchdowns with LSU. If the Bulldogs defense can't stop them, the bet's going to lose. So it's just a matter of, if you believe in that Georgia defense, there's two bets to be made, not just one.
Yeah, well, I've made mine and I've gone LSU all the way. I've looked at this Georgia defence. Yeah, I think they've obviously done really well and they are in the position they are because of the D. I think, how fit is DeAndre Swift? We've got no Lawrence Cager. So we're on Dominic Blaylock to share the load. And I don't trust Jake for him. And then we're talking about listen, I think the Heisman winner is -2,000. Joe Burrow breaking records every week. I'm not having this Georgia Bulldog side. It's LSU Tigers all the way for me, but I will agree that I think it will be the under. I'm happy to go 7. I think I went 7.5 as well. So for me, I think LSU. Do you think LSU are the real deal and will win outright?
I mean, LSU's a 7-point favorite. So I think Georgia's live to win the game. Absolutely. And if you're asking me, would I lay -250, -270? What are you looking at laying with LSU to win the game? No, I would not lay that with LSU. Again, LSU hasn't faced a defense as good as Georgia's all year. And I know Georgia hasn't faced an offense as good as LSU's, but in these matchups, historically, not this year, not the last 5 years, the last 30 years, you want the defense over the offense. Unless the defense is overrated or the offense is just, Even the 99 Rams, where the Titans shut them down in the Super Bowl. When you get the elite defenses, there's something to be said for backing those teams catching points at this time of the year. So I can't wish you luck with LSU.
No, I wouldn't expect you to.
I'm not going to root for the push. I got Georgia plus. We'll be on opposite sides of this one.
No, I'm quite happy to be on the opposite side when I think that this outstanding offense, Joe Burrow doesn't come along every single year. And I'm just not having the Bulldogs. I'm just not having them. I think that, listen, I'm in total agreement with you that most times that I would want to be with a D. I mean, we go back to the Baltimore Ravens in the early 2000s and the Ds win championships. But there again, Joe Burrow, he looks like he is something special. And considered some of the NFL quarterbacks I've seen this year, I'd rather have him taking a snap and dropping back into the pocket.
Well, you say there's not a Joe Burrow every year. I couldn't disagree stronger. There is a Joe Burrow every year. There's 3 Joe Burrows every year. And some of them step up at the NFL level and some of them don't. And, we look at Georgia last year. They're facing Tua. You ask me, who am I going to take as the better NFL quarterback down the road? I'll take Tua over Burrow in a New York minute. And Georgia's defense was all right against them last year. They hung around against Alabama in they lost by 7. In the SEC title game. And again, a 7-point loss here would be a push. But Burrow's a good QB, okay? I'm not saying he's a bad QB, but I'm saying every year in college football, you find Joe Burrows. Some of them pan out at the next level. Some of them don't.
Yeah, but take away the figures, take away the records. Just judge it with your naked eye. He looks absolutely stone cold in that pocket. He breaks out. He has a turn of pace. He's a proper athlete. He has a brain. He sees pictures. And I'm looking at it from a professional sportsman's point of view. And I'm looking at him going, wow, you are proper. And I'd be more than happy to see him go to an NFL side and take them snaps. What else do you like, Teddy?
Well, so let's talk Big 12 championship game with Oklahoma and Baylor. And this is one that it's kind of taken me all week to put it together. But the more I've thought about this game, the more I've researched this game, the more I like the Oklahoma Sooners minus the points against Baylor. And we think about this first meeting. We all remember the first meeting. Baylor up 28-3. And then Oklahoma answers back in a big way in the second, with a really dominant second half on the road at Baylor. And everyone's like, oh, Baylor's fine. They just knocked off Texas and Kansas. Texas and Kansas aren't Oklahoma. And we talk about playing in these title games every year. I think that's a legit edge for Georgia in the game against LSU. They played in this title game each of the last 2 years. Oklahoma's played and won in this title game each of the last 2 years. I think that is a legitimate edge against Baylor. And what happened in the second half of that game, where a 28-3 deficit turned into a 31-28 victory, where it wasn't just one side of the ball. It was both sides of the football dominance for Oklahoma. All they've done is play better down the stretch, and yet here it is. I'm hearing people tell me, oh, well, the Baylor Bears have bounced back so nicely off of their loss. They played the two right teams at the right time. Oklahoma figured them out and dominated them, and I think we see more of the same. I do not expect this one to be close in the second half. And I give Baylor all the credit. They've had a great season. They're not as good as Oklahoma. And Sooners are about to show it. So that's my single strongest play for Saturday is Oklahoma minus the points against Baylor.
Yeah, you've got me worried now, Teddy, because I'm in total agreement with you. And you should be worried because I'm not that hot at the moment. I'm going 50-50 every week. So I get 3 or 4 right, I get 3 or 4 wrong. But, wow, yeah, I'm happy. Oklahoma, I think, are absolutely the real deal when it comes to just outside that top echelon. What about the Ohio State against Wisconsin?
The only way I could play it is Ohio State minus, all right? Again, this has been a series history here, and you don't want to go too far back. But over the last 15 years, okay, these two teams have played, I think it's 12 times. And Wisconsin's won once and covered twice. 11 times. Sorry, it was 10-1 straight up, 9-2 against the spread. Wisconsin has repeatedly been unable to hang with Ohio State. We saw them play earlier this year. What happened? Wisconsin, they hung around for a little while, They couldn't hang around for 60 minutes. And once the Badgers fell off, once they hung and tough and hung and tough and hung and tough, and then once they got punched in the mouth, there was nothing left. and it was boom, boom, boom. Ohio State ran them out of the gym. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen here. I'm not betting in front. You talk about the best teams in college football, and I personally think that Ohio State and Clemson are the two teams in college football that are both better than LSU. So those are the two teams in my mind that I expect to play for the national title. They're the two teams that I will not be standing in front of. And, I mean, maybe the Badgers find a way defensively to hang around for a while in this one. I think Wisconsin definitely correlates with under in this matchup. If the Buckeyes get, 5 touchdowns, Wisconsin's going to have a long evening. So if you like the Wisconsin side, again, to maximize your return on investment, you may well want to look at the under in this one. But I could easily see Ohio State in under because I'm not sure how Wisconsin scores. Jonathan Taylor, again, the first meeting, 20 carries, 52 yards, and that's about what we can expect. There aren't many teams that have been able to run on Ohio State this year, namely none. And the teams that have moved the football against Ohio State have been chucking it downfield, like Shea Patterson did in the first half last week for the Wolverines. But Shea Patterson's better than Jack Cohn, okay? And Wisconsin's passing game can only be successful when they're running the football effectively. I don't think they can run the football effectively here, which means that I think at some point Ohio State's going to pull away. Buckeyes or pass for this better, and it definitely lean towards the under. Although the problem with the under, and maybe Wisconsin team total under is a better bet. But the problem with the under is Ohio State's not going to stop scoring. And we've seen them approach or exceed the total all by themselves on more than one occasion this season. Lean under. Team total for Badgers under might be the better bet.
Teddy, I haven't had to be up all night every day of the week for these selections because the Ohio State, I've given up 15.5. I'm happy going with Oklahoma -9. LSU, I've gone with them -7, maybe 7.5 in a spot. And the big one for me is Clemson, giving up 27.5.
Well, so it sounds like you like a lot of chalk. You like all the favorites this weekend.
I do. I think the cream rises to the top this week, Teddy. I'm not getting in the way of any of these runaway trains.
Yeah, I mean, historically, and again, I'm not someone that spends all my time looking back, but historically, this is a weekend where we do see a fair few blowouts, but we also see a fair few shockers. Now, I don't think that Virginia is going to shock Clemson.
No.
Okay.
No, there's a gulf, Teddy. There's a gulf between these two outfits.
There's a huge gulf. However, Virginia's 2 toughest games this season, okay? I watched them both. I watched the game at Miami, where their offensive line got slapped around, but their defense played great. And I watched the game at Notre Dame, where they didn't cover, but it was a fraudulent non-cover. They were every bit as good as the Irish in those games. I'm not stepping in front of Clemson, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Virginia hang around in this game. I really wouldn't. They're a character team, okay? They've shown me they can take punches and punch back, and that's what I want at this time of year. A mobile quarterback, and Clemson's defense is ridiculous, okay? I'm not. It's a difficult defense to find any vulnerability with. But Virginia's found some ways this season. It's not a game I'm going to play. I wouldn't talk out of the Clemson side. But stranger things have happened than Virginia hanging around in that one. Hard game for me.
My son lives in Clemson, goes to the games, and said to me, before the line even comes up, they win by 30. He said to me, minimum 35-7. So when I looked at 27.5 and got under the 28, I was more than happy. The week before, he said to me, Dad, don't even think about it. Get on, Clemson. They win. And win big. So I'm going to keep the faith with him, keep the faith. But obviously, I'm going to go with the top 3 winning. And I'm going to go against Georgia. And I also like Utah. What else do you like, Teddy?
I took Central Michigan minus the points. That's the other favorite that I like for Saturday. Central against Miami, Ohio. And we talked about this one early in the week, but we can certainly talk about it again. When the Chippewas, there's one thing that Central Michigan had that nobody else in the MAC had this year. That was a defensive line, really a front 7. And their front 7 was capable of blowing teams off the line of scrimmage. And if you look at their results down the stretch, that's what they were doing. Teams were unable to move the football against Central. because they were the Chippewas' defensive line was blowing up the line of scrimmage, and there's no room to run, there's no room to throw, and teams wore down, and Central put up points in bunches in the second half of these games. So what changes here? Nothing. Central's got the elite defensive line capable of dominating the line of scrimmage against Miami O. They have a quarterback who's making plays. They have a balanced offense and running the football. I think the Red Hawks, it's been a good run for Miami O, but Central's a class here. And again, a team that was 1-11 last year. Coaching change, JUCO talent infusion, it's made all the difference. Chips win the title tomorrow. I laid the 6.5 with Central Michigan.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say to you, Teddy. Open -3, it's now -6, definitely moving towards the 7 with plenty 6.5s on there. So if you didn't get the -3, you're still happy to go -6.5.
Where did you see a -3? I never saw a -3.
Yeah, that's what it opened. It opened at Pinnacle -3, Bookmaker -3, but now they're going -6.5, near enough, right across the board, edging towards a touchdown, Teddy.
No, I my opener at Pinnacle shows 6.5.
No, I've got opener.
I'm pretty sure that's right. There were no 3. There might have been a rogue 3 for a minute, but this line's been sitting 6.5 since Sunday night.
Early bird catches a worm.
Hasn't gone to 7. Hasn't gone down to 6. I mean, literally, I'm across the board 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. There's a couple of 6s out there. I laid the 6.5 on Sunday night, thinking it was going to go to 7, and it hasn't done that all week. But 6.5 is the only way I could look at it. There may have been a rogue 3 out there for a minute, but at no point was that the consensus number. If you got a 3, more power to you. That's a great line. If you got a 4 or a 5, that's a great line.
Well, obviously, because you're happy with 6.5, Teddy. I'm liking that.
Anything less than a touchdown.
I like the fact that Teddy's not picking up the rogues.
Well, I mean, again, it's one thing when we're betting, okay? Anytime, if I'm seeing a rogue number, you better believe I'm going to gobble up. That's my job. But when we're talking about lines and games for people to actually bet themselves, we have to be realistic with the numbers. And the number here was 6.5 Sunday night. I can't say that the number was 3. No.
I'm with you. I don't think it's a typo. I think it was just probably a rogue. They tested the water. They got steamed over in the first 20 or 30 seconds. You mentioned shockers, Teddy. Where do you think the shock comes from?
I think the shock comes from Georgia. I think Georgia's live to beat LSU. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I don't like that. I might raise that from the video, in fact, Teddy. I don't like you coming back at me with the Bulldogs over the Tigers. Anything else you like, Teddy?
That's all I played in college football. I have 3 bets in college football. I played Central Michigan, minus the points, Oklahoma, minus the points, Georgia plus the points. Those are my 3 wagers for the weekend.
And what about the NFL? What about the NFL? There's some unbelievable matchups. We can't let you go without obviously talking about the 49ers at the Saints and the 49ers getting points.
Sure, it really is an interesting game. San Fran stayed back east this week, which is a positive thing. They did this 2-game East Coast swing early in the season, won them both. Won at Tampa week 1 and then Cincinnati week 2. This time, obviously, a little bit tougher competition with Baltimore and New Orleans.
And then
Drew Brees isn't right.
No,
he's just
thumb.
It's not the thumb; it's his age. And we're seeing the older. It's going on around the league. Phillip Rivers hasn't been right. Tom Brady hasn't been right. Drew Brees hasn't been right. And when you reach that stage of your career, we saw the ghost of Peyton Manning win a Super Bowl. But when you get to that point where it's just not right anymore,
I know.
I worry about it.
Yeah,
New Orleans has cluster injuries on the offensive line. They're missing a pair of starters on the OL, both on the left side of the line. They have cluster injuries at linebackers. They were signing linebackers off the street this week. And yet, even with all of that, I have a lot of hesitation betting against New Orleans in this spot. I really do. I don't trust Breeze. I don't trust the offensive line. I worry about the defense. And yet all the Saints have done all year is not just, they've won literally every single close game. It's hard to step in front of that in December when a team has found a way to go, what are they, 8-0 in games decided by a touchdown or less? It feels infinite by a single score. And that's hard for me to step in front of. So it's not a game I'm going to bet. What about you?
Oh, I think it's basically an in-play bet for me because I'm really impressed with the 49ers, but I don't know how much has been taken out of them. Had that great game against the Ravens last week where the 49ers actually lost, but they actually gained a little bit more respect from me. I thought that it was a game that could have gone either way. I was actually on the money line mid-game with the 49ers because I felt that they were getting stronger, but I need to see how they've recovered and whether they're going to be carrying a little bit and they've got bigger fish to fry. But I think it's going to be a cracking game. The big one for me is in the AFC. And I look at the Ravens, a -6, at the Bills. Bills defense, 9-3, sleeping in the AFC. But do you think the Ravens get it done and can give up 6, Teddy?
I can't lay 6 with Baltimore. It's a Buffalo or pass deal for me in this game. And I mean, it really is. And the Bills, again, we saw them dominate Dallas last week, and now it's like, oh, well, that's devalued because Dallas lost last night. And nothing that Buffalo does seems to do anything to affect the broader markets for the Bills, where the Bills, everyone's like, Buffalo, they're okay. They're just beating up patsies, and they can't beat any good teams. And Baltimore's a good team.
Without doubt.
Don't love this spot here for the Ravens. And it's a Bills team that matches up fairly well against Baltimore. When we think about Baltimore's defensive weakness, they can't stop the run. And we saw San Fran do it last week. And it's really hard to stop Lamar Jackson and company. That was a game where they had like 7 drives each. It was from a really short game. The second half, each team had 3 drives apiece, and that was the entire second half. The game moved very quickly.
Teddy, we got in the chat, we got non-applicable saying the Bills ain't no Ravens, but the Bills are at home. The Ravens have obviously come off that tough game against the 49ers, so we don't know what that's taken out of them as well. And when we're talking about giving up 6 points against this Bills D, I think the safest play is probably the over 43.5.
I'd be reluctant to play the over here because of exactly what we saw from Baltimore last week. All the Ravens want to do is shorten the game. They want, like the Cowboys opening drive last night, the 17-play, 9-minute drives. That's what Baltimore's whole MO is. So it's hard for me to get to the window playing overs in Ravens games because I know all they want to do is play a game where, both teams have 8 drives, and that's not conducive to overs.
Okay, last one, Teddy. Last one. The Chiefs getting 3 points at Foxborough with the Patriots. And this is a strong play for me, the under 49.
Kansas City's offense has been literally the only offense in the NFL that's been able to move the football against New England. And I mean, in a real way, they played the last 2 years. The rest of the NFL has scored in less than 20% of their drives against the Patriots. And the last 2 years, the Chiefs have scored on more than 45% of their drives. So they've been able to move the football. They've solved this defense. I continue not to be excited about laying a price with Tom Brady or Phillip Rivers or Drew Brees or the aging QBs in December. But when you talk about a track record, and this you have to talk history. You cannot look at a Patriots game and not recognize what's happened over the course of the last 2 decades. New England wins these games. They cover these games over and over and over. Patriots off a loss, better than 67% long-term sample size. Patriots is home chalk in December of less than a touchdown, better than 70% significant sample size. So I'm going to lean towards Kansas City. I think they can move the football against New England. I think they can pressure Tom Brady. Again, the whole Chiefs defense is predicated on a pass rush. That's Brady's weakness. And Patriots offensive line has not been elite of late. So I do think Kansas City's live to win this game. But I've lost enough money betting against New England and Foxborough in December that I'm not looking to do it again. Lean, KC. That's as far as it goes. I wish you luck on your underplay.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to need any luck at 49 because I think both these teams, it's all about the W. There's going to be no expansive plays. You know the Patriots are not going to go deep, Teddy. They've got no pace. And there is question marks about Tom Brady's arm over even the 15-yard slants. So for me, I'm thinking, listen, under 49 is a knock, and I'm not going to go anywhere near laying Patriots at -3. but I wouldn't want to be going against them neither. So we're going to wrap it up, Teddy. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with the legend. I've got to hex you. I've got to get me Teddy voodoo doll out with the Georgia Bulldogs and put loads of pins in.
I was wondering why my gut's hurting right now. You got one back there? Something's going on. Man. I'm getting stuck in my intestines as we speak. So you put it together pretty quick. Cheers.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that Jimmy gives you plenty of hammer, or I will not be seen if the Tigers don't get it done against the Bulldogs. Teddy, you have a great weekend, apart from the obvious game, and we'll speak to you again soon.
I look forward to it. Good luck this weekend, Lowbaggers. Thanks for watching. We'll talk on Monday.
Nice one. That's Teddy Covers going through the games, and he's against me in some. I'm with him with some. Am I nervous about being with him, or am I nervous about being against him? Just Malik, later on SBR, make sure that you tune in with Jimmy the Bag, if he's well, and Maxwell Swart, who is a runaway train in college basketball. You do not want to get in the way of him. Jump on board, and he'll take you to profits. Until next time, see you soon.